I have a personal relationship with someone who has struggled with mental illness for the majority of my life. With that experience, it left me with a lot of questions, especially as a child, right? Where I didn't understand what was happening. And so when I saw that brochure in family science, it really spoke to me, I think personally, where I could be that person, I could be that voice that I didn't have.
All right, guys, welcome back to Indie Speaks TV. If this is your first time, my name is Andy, and I am a family nurse practitioner. Today, we have an amazing guest, which I think you guys are gonna love. She brings a wealth of knowledge, and I think this topic is very relevant to almost everybody, whether you have a child or not. We're gonna be talking about what every parent should know about their child's emotions and feelings. I have the pleasure of knowing her. So I want Channing, well, Channing is our guest today, to give you guys a little background about herself, who she is, and what she does, and tell us a little bit about yourself, Channing.
Thank you, Indy. So, as you said, I'm Channing Clark. I am the owner and clinical director of Restore You Counseling and Consultation. I've been in the mental health field for, I want to say, like 17 years now. I've been a licensed practitioner for the past 10 years, worked in a variety of capacities from a clinical case manager to a support worker to leading up to being a mental health therapist and clinical director. I have a bachelor's in family science and a master's in mental health counseling. Um, Along with the mental health aspect, I'm also a creative person and love to find ways to introduce mental health in different creative ways. So I've written poetry, I've performed spoken word, I've written and directed a play centered around mental health and spirituality. I'm an adjunct professor with McDaniel College, and I just love. I'm very passionate about mental health and making sure that people are informed, because I think that growing up, especially for my own personal experience growing up, there weren't many conversations surrounding mental health and what that looks like, healthy ways of coping. I think in the recent years, there's been more talk about mental health that I'm just so excited to see. But I'm really passionate about people knowing and understanding what mental health consists of and having the tools that they need to be more resilient in life.
That is so good. That was awesome. So let me ask you, why did you decide to go into mental health? I feel like you have to be extra passionate. Like in nursing, we say people are passionate in order for you to do nursing, but I feel like when it comes to mental health, it's gotta come from a personal place or something that you're really passionate about. What drew you into mental health?
That's a great question. And I think that, as you mentioned, most people who come into the mental health field, they do have a personal story that brings them into the field, from my experience, at least. For me, I think the first thing is that when I was in undergrad, I feel like I literally explored every possible major that there could be before
Wow.
I ended up close to the mental health field. I was pursuing becoming a physician's assistant. I was
Oh,
exploring
really?
accounting. Yes, yes. I had started a program, working in that field. I was doing accounting, business. I was all over the place. And when I was in undergrad at the University of Maryland, College Park, I was talking this through with my advisor, and they actually shared with me the major of family science. And when I started to read it, and I remember walking on campus, and God literally revealed to me, like, this is the way that you're going to go. From there, that's sort of where it started, and I did my degree there. I loved it. And then I went on to pursue my master's. Even deeper purpose, I think, behind me being in the field is that I have uh, a personal relationship with someone who has struggled with mental illness for the majority of my life. And with that experience, it left me with a lot of questions, especially as a child, right? Where I didn't understand what was happening and I didn't understand it. And so when I saw that brochure in family science, it really spoke to me, I think, personally, where I could be that person, I could be that voice that I didn't have. Growing up, like I said, I think in my past, there weren't many conversations about mental health. And so when a challenge as it relates to mental health was so present in my life, I didn't know where to turn. And so I really wanted to be able to be someone who could stand in the gap for those who were maybe experiencing what my family member was experiencing, as well as what I was experiencing being a bystander.
That's really awesome. What you just said, it just makes sense to me.
Yeah.
It can be a calling.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, Psalms 139, where God says he mapped out every day of our lives. And, if that's the case, we primarily spend the most of our time, our lives at work. And so, regardless of what it is that you do, to me, I believe that wherever you are as it relates to work and employment, that is something that God has called you to do. And so being able to sit with that and be the best in whatever role you play.
Today we are gonna focus on children and their emotion. I have teenagers and I have a toddler. So I want to know what are the different you've seen in those two, like, different groups of, you know, children.
Yeah, so that's a wide spectrum, right? That you that you're referencing between the two. So definitely praying for you in those.
Thank
um,
you.
But no, I think that, to some degree, there are, some developmentally similar types of emotions and experiences that they experience at those different phases of life. You look at teenagers, right? I think a lot of the ways to describe teenagers and their behaviors connected to sometimes kind of like a rebellion or irritability. Um, in some cases, maybe feeling down and things of that nature. I think when you look at teenagers and you kind of group them all together, a lot of it is exploring a lot of emotion, changing physically, and that impacts your mood and how you feel. And they're, transitioning as well. They're in the middle of this transition between being a child, but then becoming an adult and going out on their own and figuring out who they are as an individual separate from their family or maybe even what they've been taught or how they've been raised. So they're sitting with a lot of different things and decisions, even. There's a lot of, peer pressure takes place, I think, at any age, but especially within that space, when you think about it, still trying to figure out who I am and then having to make decisions about who I'm connected with when we're out and what decisions do I make? Do I stick with what I've been taught or do I make a decision that's different, that's connected with my peers so that I fit in and I'm a part of this other space? And so, my heart goes out to teenagers because there is a lot that's involved in that space. And a lot of times they're not fully equipped to manage those situations. I think a lot of times some parents aren't necessarily equipped to sit with some of the things that they're exploring and trying to figure out and trying to, I think it's a transition for parents as well, because as a parent, you're used to caring for the child, making all of the decisions for the child.
Mhm.
And so to see the child transitioning, the parent also has to transition to taking a step back and learning a new role with this child that they've known for all of their lives. And so the dynamics really shift for the entire family when you look at teenagers. And so uh the parents sometimes are like grieving in a sense that transition with their role in the teenager's life, as well as the teenagers, and to some degree are maybe even grieving that as well. And in as they're in that journey of being able to become who they are as an adult. So I think there's just, when I think about teenagers, there's just so much that comes into that population that I think deserves a lot of care and patience, and a lot of supportive spaces that go in to caring for children who are in that phase of life. When you look at younger children, um, one of the things I think comes to mind is curiosity, uh,
Mhm.
right? Where they're trying to figure out, how does the world work? How do I work as a person in my body, and as I relate with their peers and things like that. They're learning about life, they're learning about relationships through their family dynamics primarily, and the other environments that they're exposed to as children. And so I think that even as parents of younger children, there's a role that parents should play as far as really being a teacher, in a sense of breaking things down and explaining it. And I think if we're especially focusing on emotions, that's something that's important as well, right? Where you're able to explain to them. I think one of the things that sticks out to me is like toddlers with tantrums, right?
Yeah.
And tantrums, they can happen anywhere, maybe in not the best spot or place, right? But if you think about it from the child's perspective, they're filled with emotion, and no one maybe has taught them what to do with that emotion.
Mhm.
So they move their body, right? Because we can feel our emotions within our body. They move their body, maybe they scream, and that's an option of relief, right? So, in a sense, I think, from a mental health perspective, when I look at it, they're actually using the coping strategies that they have to
Mhm.
express what they're feeling internally. And so, as a parent in that space, the role would be, how do I help the child to understand what it is that they're experiencing, maybe connect with them on that level to be able to say, you know what? I felt like I wanted to scream too, but you know what I've done? I've squeezed this ball and it helped me. Or whatever it is, some other type of strategy that can help them to navigate that emotion in a healthier way. Instead of just saying, hey, stop, don't do that, providing an alternative, right? What else can they do? Because that emotion is there and it needs to be expressed. We don't want to teach our children to suppress their feelings and emotions, right? Also, when I think about children from a younger age, I think about the adults that I work with. A lot
Mhm.
of the work that I do with adults, it's not 100% of the time, but majority of the time, I'm doing work to unpack what happened when they were younger, in these
Mhm.
formative years, the way that they learned about the dynamics between maybe their parents in relationships, and they're living out that in their adulthood. Because again, in those younger years, you're forming the way, okay, the world works like this. Okay, I work like this because of what I've been told and way the way I was treated here. And so a part of that identity is being formed there, the way that they engage with the world, the way they engage with relationships. And so that's where I believe that there's a lot of education that needs to take place, sitting in moments with younger children to be able to explain, what do you think about what happened today? When I'm not saying that you don't, discipline your children, but having conversations. Do you understand why that happened? Right? And getting a sense of, how are they interpreting this situation? How did they interpret this type of discipline that took place, right? For some, depending on the child, they may interpret it as, oh, I'm a bad person. And so that's a narrative that you want to catch as quick as possible to be able to say, no, just because, you know, mommy or daddy says this or we discipline you in this way, it doesn't mean, it actually means that we love you because we want the best for you, right? So I think that's an important piece that a lot of people, again, aren't educated, aren't informed on. These are the things that happen and how integral that is in their development, even into their adulthood. So, like I said, I do a lot of work of, people who have been, within, in I think, even when I say that about adults still dealing with the narratives they received as younger children, it's not to say that all of the parents were bad parents or that they were, abusive or anything like that. Sometimes children just don't have the tools to understand how to interpret something. And so they create their own narrative without the parents' knowledge because they didn't know the questions to ask or to sit with this conversation. And so that's a part of where, even going and sitting down and allowing them to express, okay, this is what I thought when this happened. It's helpful to help them to create these new narratives to say, okay, you felt that way. I can understand that, but I want to explain to you our side of this and what we were thinking, what our thoughts were, right? So I think helpful conversations, being able to educate and inform younger children in that way, it will do a world of difference as they get older. Even when you think about them transitioning into that teenage age, right, where they're trying to figure out who they are and all these things. If you've already started having these types of conversations, you've done a lot of work that, you can bear fruit even within those teenage years that they know, okay, I'm thinking this way about maybe this relationship, but you know what? I remember talking with my parents and they broke down that there's other ways of looking at this. And so they'll have additional tools even within that phase of life because of what's already been planted with those types of conversations.
Let me throw a bit of culture in there because
Mm,
I'm from Nigeria, right? And when we were growing up, I want to know if this is something that you've also experienced, like as a mental health counselor, right? Is
mhm,
this something that you're saying? I'm from a culture where boys are taught to be hard, right? A
mhm,
boy cries, why are you crying? You're a guy, you're a man, you should act like a man, stop crying, men don't cry. Versus girls, it's okay for girls to express their feelings. When a girl
mhm,
cry, oh, what's wrong? Come here, honey. Now we have
mhm.
men that are still children emotionally, and
Yeah.
then mature, they get married, and they don't know how to handle their emotions, and they don't know how to speak out, right? If
Mhm,
something happens, they bottle their feelings, they don't say
mhm.
anything, and one day they explode and they knock everywhere down, so like what do you say about that? Do you see a lot of that?
I think it still relates to what I mentioned. If you're going to tell the child, whether it's male or female, to not cry, what are their alternatives? What are you
Mm,
giving them, right? If you're going to say that, if you feel like I want to stand firm in this cultural belief, what I'm saying is, okay, that's fine, but what are they going to do with that? Because the tears are a physical manifestation of something that's happening internally for them. So stopping the crying isn't stopping what's going on internally. And I think that speaks to what you said. They grow up and then that emotion, that internal thing is there. Eventually it explodes and it has these other effects that take place, right? A lot of times what I tell my clients is your emotions aren't going anywhere if you don't express them. It's better for you to be intentional about exploring and expressing those feelings than those feelings come up when you don't want them to come up or come up with someone that you don't want them to come up with or manifest in some other type of behavior. So, I think on one end, if, culturally you say you want to stand firm in that, provide alternatives. If that child can't cry, what can they do when they're experiencing that type of emotion? Are you asking what's causing the tears? Where is
Mm.
that coming from? I think really that's a better conversation because that can help you to maybe provide some alternate tools or other ways of them managing whatever it is that they're experiencing. I don't think that crying, whether you're male or female, is a bad thing, but that's, my belief, right? But again, I think providing alternatives. If you're going to say don't do it, then what options do I have? What do I do with that?
You just said something that is so powerful. Your
Mm.
emotions aren't going anywhere if you don't express them
It'll
out.
show up in some way, in some type of behavior, right? Even when you look at addiction, and a lot of times, where that comes from is a manifestation of emotions that weren't necessarily expressed or allowed a space to express a lot of times. And so they create their own coping strategy in a sense. And so that's why I say, don't just say stop, provide other options, teach them other ways of expressing that are healthy.
In talking about teaching them other ways, right? Providing other outlets. I have been privileged to read this your book, Ari Meets Her Feelings. I was blown away. Not only the fact that you're teaching children how to manage their emotions, because I think sometimes as parents we do forget that the children actually have to learn how to manage those emotions. We
Mhm.
see a reaction, we see an emotion, and we label them, of course, happy, sad, angry, all of this, and we already have a way of dealing with it. Or I'm going to give you timeout, or I'm going to, you need to stop crying, or you need to sit here. But we've never, like, I think most parents don't actually take the time to explore those feelings, like you said, and see where it's coming from. So I've been very, very lucky to read this. I think it's a great book. Not only did you do that, you also provided two workbooks, one for the child and one for the parents. And I was going through the one for the parents. Like, it literally tells the parents, like, if your child is having these emotions, what do you do? How can you recognize that this is a positive one? What do you need to look out for to know that this is beyond a normal emotion? Is something that you should, look into, and maybe they need help in this area, and what are the help that you can give to them. And then you have the one for the child to kind of like record her feelings, draw how they feel, and go over their emotions. I recently found my son's journal. It was so funny, and he was my oldest. He was chasing me down the house to take, because I did give him a journal, like when he was, younger, like, to, okay, write your feelings, and
Mhm.
write, talk about your day. And I did, like, he'll write, oh, today he actually put the date, and he'll say, today I hope I don't get in trouble in school. I hope I stay on green. Oh, today we got ice cream. It was so good. I was like, it was so funny. So, but just reading that and having a way to actually record how you feel, it lets them express that emotion. So I want you to tell us about this book, and this the book itself, and then the workbook. What can the parents expect from this workbook for the parents and the child, and why did you write this book? Because it's too good.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I think you did a great overview of it and what it entails. I think we started this conversation with me saying, my personal reason for coming into this field. And a part of that reason was because I was experiencing a family member who had a mental illness growing up, and I didn't have the tools, the resources to be able to understand what was happening for them, as well as what was happening for me emotionally. And so, in me creating this book series, I really wanted to create a resource for the whole family to be able to have a way to sit with emotions and a strategy in a sense of helping the child to process emotions, as well as a tool for the parents to be able to understand how to support their children with their emotions, depending on whatever may come up or be present for them. So I feel like this book series is my answer to what I needed growing up. However, I think it's just a great resource for parents as well who maybe don't know how to have these conversations, who didn't have the conversations themselves and need a guide to do so. So, starting with the book, so Ari Meets Her Feelings, it's actually a story based off of my godchildren. And it's the youngest goddaughter of the two sisters who is exploring her emotions, her feelings. And so in the book, she meets her different emotions that are coming up. And so it can help, especially younger children, to be able to identify feelings, because really that's the first step when you think about emotional or mental health. Being able to identify and recognize what it is that I'm feeling or experiencing in this moment is key. Before you can come up with a strategy, you have to know what's going on. And so it's helpful in that way, where it helps parents as well as children to be able to recognize that different emotions and feelings happen in different types of situations. And so, even in the series of events that take place within the story, children can connect with those experiences and say, "Oh, I felt that way. I felt this way when this happens." They're able to gain the emotional language that's connected with what it is that they're experiencing. So I think that goes back to what we were talking about as it relates to not just telling someone not to do something, but providing them the tools. And so this is a tool to offer if they're able to recognize, okay, I feel this way. This is the word to express what I'm feeling. So maybe I don't have to move my body, maybe I don't have to scream, but I can just say the word that's connected to what it is that I'm experiencing. So, in combination with that, I wanted to add on another resource where you can read the book, but then you can also have the activity journal where it's different games that they can play, word games, and other things they can do, as well as different coping strategies that they can practice as well. Gives them a space to go in and daily identify what it is that I'm feeling and whatever else may come to mind. Like you said, with your child and how they were writing, I want to stay in the green today, right? They could write down their hopes and dreams in there as well. So I created that, and so then later I added on the parents guide when I was thinking about it. You know, let's say that a certain type of emotion is showing up frequently for a child. I wanted to have a resource for the parents to know how to navigate that. If I'm going through this journal with my child and I notice they're always feeling angry, or maybe one day they're feeling sad, what do I do with that, right? And so I created this guide. It's for parents where it's separated by emotion so they can go to whatever emotion that they recognize is coming up or that they have a concern about, and be able to identify some resources to help them as well as to help the child to work through those feelings if they are present, or if they notice a pattern of certain types of emotions. So I thought that was a complete family thing that you can sit down and with the family really sort through the emotions and start to have these types of conversations.
Just when you were talking, it's like I just got this thing in in my mind. I like to call it, let me not say what I, but I just thinking of this, right?
Mhm.
Not only is this for the child, right, to record their emotions, because when you look at it, there's a place that actually says, color your emotions today, right?
Mhm.
Angry, the green is good. And how do you feel today? And the child needs to color um my hand need to color on this side their
Mhm.
emotion. And while you were talking, I just got this revelation that even for a parent, you
Mhm.
have to go through this book.
Mm.
Child is doing this because it lets you know what is going on with your child. So if your child, you open the book, let's say your child has done 10 days of this, right? And you
Mhm.
go through it and the color is always on red, always on orange, then that's a clue for you
Mhm.
to explore and say, why is it every day? Because most parents, their child can be depressed and they
Mhm.
don't know. So I think this is a great resource for your child to record, for the child to record their feelings. And as a parent, not only giving to the child and say, here, this is an outlet for you to kind of put down, do activities, put down how you feel. It's actually also for the parents to go over it, go back and look at it and see what your child is feeling. And then it can
Absolutely.
clue you to know if your child needs help or how is my child, like
Yeah.
emotionally, how healthy is my child. So I think that just came to me. This is really good with that too.
I think that's a great point, and that was one of the reasons that I wanted to create all of these three products because I think that it is helpful for parents and children to be able to have these types of conversations, right? It doesn't just have to be the child sitting and talking about it, but the parent as well. It allows, as a parent, you're busy, you're doing a lot of different things, but being able to just sit with that one page and do your own assessment to say, how am I feeling? You know what? I think I'm in the red today too,
Mhm.
right? And being able to have those types of dialogue can help the child to better understand their emotional health, as well as some tools to be able to work through it.
And I just want to point it out because again, I'm from a different culture.
Hmm.
I know most parents, they are so busy. Honestly, they don't want to sit down and do this because they are very busy. They go to work and this, that. But even if you're not able to, I think getting the book for your child, and like I say, you can go through the book once in a while and just kind of check in on your child through the book to see. So
Hmm.
even if you don't have time to do it yourself, I think it's still a great resource for you to provide for your children. Where can someone get this book if they wanted to get this book for their, maybe someone wants to get it for their friend? This is a great Christmas gift, or someone wants to get it for themselves, for their niece, their nephew, their sister, somebody. How can they purchase the book?
So I have it available on my website, which is restoreYouCounseling.com. I also have it available on Amazon as well for purchase. So either one of those options is available.
I am going to put the link for the book. I'm gonna find it on Amazon, and then I'm gonna put the link to this video, and I'm also gonna put the link to her website um, um, on this video, so that people can, if you want, you can go purchase it and go through it. Just because you have to get this book doesn't mean that anything is wrong with your child. It's just a way, even as normal emotion, is just a way of helping them navigate their feelings. Because if you don't talk about it and they don't learn about it, somebody's going to talk about it, or somebody's going to tell them the wrong things, or
Mhm.
they're going to tell themselves the wrong things. Children think a lot in their mind without expressing it, and they make up beliefs about themselves, and you'll be shocked. Thank you so much, Jenny. So apart from the book, if someone wanted to find you, where can they find you if they have a question and they wanted to reach out to you?
So on my website, you can go to my website and I have a contact form as well as my email address there. That's really the best way to get in contact with me if you have a question or anything like that. I don't respond to like DMs and things, but through my website and email.
All right, it has been very, very insightful. I've
Mhm.
learned a lot. I still can't get over. that word that you said, if you don't express your feelings, they're not going to go anywhere. If I haven't learned anything else, I have learned a lot, but I think that just I just really stood out for me. So thank you so much, Channing. It's been a pleasure having you, and I'm pretty sure that people learned a lot today. God bless you. I'm really glad that you're doing what you're doing and you're helping a lot of people. The world needs so many people like you. So thank you so much. And I pray that God gives you the courage and the grace to continue in what you're doing, for you to not give up, but let Him strengthen you, knowing that there are so many people that actually need you. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much, Indy. I really appreciate the opportunity. I don't take it lightly when people add you to their platform. So I really appreciate it.
All right.
All
Thank you.
right.
What is this? What emotion is this?
Mad.
What about this?
Scared.
What about this?
Happy.
What about this?
Silly.
What about this?
Sad.
That's worried. Oh my God, Puma, you know how to do this. Oh